Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we will be taking a look at Ubuntu Budgie as part of the Big Daddy Linux or Biddle challenge. This is not a review. This is not a comprehensive, in-depth, and detailed review. This is my first impressions, my initial thoughts. You will be seeing my reactions as I experience it. For the most part, you will be seeing things as I see them, and be getting my initial thoughts and reactions on this. So without further ado, let's get through it. Initial impressions. We have a panel up here with a start menu on the left hand side, a clock dead in the center, and looks like a taskbar with notifications, and get the Raven menu here. We'll get into that later. On the desktop here, so we have some kind of conky or something here, which I haven't used conky in years. That's weird. Down here looks like we have some kind of dock, most likely plank. Down here looks like we have the software center, a rhythm box, a couple office apps, writer, calc, files, Firefox, and a terminal emulator called Tilix or Tilix. I'm not really sure how that's pronounced. I'm sure somebody will correct me in the comments. RTFM. But yeah, so my initial impressions, it is a gorgeous looking desktop, very original, out of the box. It definitely looks like the Ubuntu team have been busy putting their own spin on the Budgie desktop environment. This is nothing like what you would see in Solus, which I think has more of a vanilla spin on Budgie, which is their project. I think they developed the Budgie desktop environment, if I'm not mistaken. So kudos to the Ubuntu team for putting their spin on this. By the way, when I said this is conky or looks like conky, that's what my initial thoughts were on it. I thought that it was conky at first. We'll get into that later. I mean, obviously I've done some things on this, like I changed the wallpaper, copied some themes over to the desktop, but those are things that I do normally. First things first, we're going to open up a terminal here. We're going to get some initial readings on this. We're going to run neofetch, see what's going on here. We have Ubuntu Disco Dingo, and this is the development branch. This is Ubuntu 19.04, the beta. So we will be keeping that in mind while we test this out. Any bugs we run into, anything not too serious, any corks, for the most part I think I will chalk it up to it's still in its development stages. But for the most part, I think that like most of this is not going to change before April, or before its release in a couple weeks or a couple days maybe at this point. So we have kernel 5.0. The desktop environment, of course, is Budgie. And the terminal Tilix. I'm not sure. I've never heard of this terminal emulator in my life. Pretty neat. That's an interesting. Looks like they call it Tilix because you can tile it and tile the windows inside of it. That's pretty neat. So we're gonna run htop real quick. See how much resources we're using up here. 1.36 out of my 8 gigs. Hasn't touched the swap, and it looks like it's doing pretty good on CPU. Keeping in mind I am running OBS in the background, and so that could easily account for most of the resources being used here. As you can see here, it's using 108%. It's easily taking up most of the power there. So we'll exit out of there. And we'll take a look at what we have installed here. Looks like we have all applications, but we're going to go through it category by category here. Catfish file search. We have files. Let's take a look at what we have for a file manager here. Yeah, we have Nemo 3.8.5. Nemo is the file manager that comes by default in the Cinnamon desktop environment, and I do prefer Nemo over Nautilus, which comes with the GNOME desktop environment. Nemo just seems to have more functionality to it. It's more intuitive, in my opinion. I can change this to be able to type in the address bar. Nautilus, for some reason, won't allow me to do that. And I can open up an extra pane, right, in the window itself. I don't have to open up a whole new instance of Nemo just to copy a few files over from one directory to another. Whereas with some other file managers, looking at you, Nautilus, you do. And so, I mean, that's a good move on their part, using Nemo as their file manager. You get points from me for that one. Maps, which I think is GNOME Maps, if I'm not mistaken here. Yes, we have a map application for GNOME. And it's taking the sweet time to load. Just kind of X out of that. I might try to get that to work again later on. Menu editor, not sure what that is. Okay. So that's to edit the applications here. I was looking for that earlier, so I mean that's good that I found that. See, we have a text editor here. Gedit, most likely. Yep. Gedit. In bold lettering for 3.32. I believe that's the same version number as the current GNOME. You have a couple games here. 2048 IO Riot, Mahjong. For graphics, it looks like we have a thumb image viewer, LibreOffice Simple Scan, LibreOffice Draw, of course. For internet, we have Chromium, which I don't remember installing Chromium on this. I only installed a few things on here. One being OBS Studio, which obviously I'm using OBS Studio right now. The other one being I installed Conky on it, and I'll get into why I did that. It was because I was trying to figure out what this thing is on the desktop here, and I went to install Conky to see if it would tell me that it was already installed, because I wasn't finding the command in the system. It didn't seem to be installed, so I just did that to confirm it, and I ended up installing it. It did confirm for me that this is not actually Conky. So, you go into Office here. We have Calendar, Calc. We have Impress, Math, Writer, and we'll take a look at what version of Libre we're on right now. Nice icon set here. No, 6.2.2.2. I think that's a pretty recent version. Let's X out of that there. Other iBus preferences. Science. Sorry, no items found. No science to be found here. Okay, sound and video. We have OBS, obviously installed OBS. VLC, Rhythmbox music player, which Rhythmbox is a very decent media player. For videos, looks like we have GNOME MPV. VLC is a very excellent video player. Great that they have that installed. For system tools, looks like we have Budgie applets, Budgie desktop settings. Budgie themes. Take a look at this. Why not? So it takes you to the Budgie welcome screen. Welcome. Well then. That's pretty neat. It's pretty nifty for the new user there. That can come in handy. For someone who wants to, spruce up their system. Makes it easy for them to do that. Administration, it looks like we have Synaptic Package Manager installed, which that's my favorite graphical package manager for the Debian based family. It's very simple. Might not be the greatest for the new user, but I find it does everything I need it to do. Preferences, looks like we have all the different settings here. We're going to go back to System Tools. We'll go to Utilities first. Looks like we have System Logs, Network Configuration. So, what you probably already noticed is you have an icon here for settings, and in System Tools we have this here that says Budgie Desktop Settings. So what's the difference between these two? Why is there two? Well, if we go into Settings here, this is almost identical, and I believe it is, GNOME settings. If you have a GNOME system, if you have GNOME installed, this is what your system setting is going to look like. So, go to online accounts. I haven't set up any online accounts yet. Devices, go back from that. Let's see if we go into details over here. Let's see what this has to say. Uh-oh. Looks like it froze up on me. Hopefully OBS didn't. Okay, here we go. Let's open up an HTOP here, see what's going on. Oh, it should not be doing that. Well, might just be a little cork in the system here. I'll try to kill that. But yeah, we're just gonna chalk this one up to it being a beta and buggy, and the fact that I'm running OBS. But I think it's more the fact that it's a beta, because as you can tell with OBS, I have plenty of RAM left over. I have plenty of CPU power left over. There's no reason why this should have froze up like this at all. None whatsoever. And boom, looks like it crashed. I'll try that again. Just run a search for settings, because there was something in there that I wanted to point out that I noticed before. Like I said, this is not a review. And you're seeing this as I see it. Oh, finally opened up. That's the risk when you're running these betas. Don't ever run something like this as your main daily driver, because you see what just happened to me. There was a bug, there's a cork, and you never know when something like that is going to pop up on a beta. It's very important that you install these either in a virtual box or on a spare machine that you never on your main rig. Don't let it touch it, because it could bork up your system, even if you put it on a different partition or on a separate hard drive for that matter. I've had that happen for me a few times. But what I was going to point out here is, I notice it's registering everything perfectly here. Except for down here. This is kind of weird. How come Ubuntu Budgie is registering that I have GNOME 3.32 installed? Did anybody else notice that? Is kind of odd. But you know, moving on. Don't question it. Just roll with it. You are really on GNOME. This is what GNOME should have been. So, matter of fact, let's try changing the Budgie theme. And it looks like Plata is the default for Solus. I remember that one was the default for Solus. I'm still using that theme on my Arch system. Beautifully, brilliantly done dark theme. That being said, right now we're going to go into Budgie desktop settings, and this, I think, the regular settings application, that one takes you to like the core settings, like the clock, the devices, networking, you know, those kinds of settings. Looks like Budgie desktop settings takes you to settings that are specifically for the Budgie desktop itself, including the Budgie theme, whatever you're going to go through for your theme, which I do prefer the darker themes. So we'll go House Arc Dark. Matter of fact, And we'll try one of the original ones. That's pretty neat. That's a pretty nice theme. So if you go on to fonts, you can change the fonts. Raven menu. This is where you change the Raven menu. You go to Windows, and now we go to top panel. I did have to Google this, and I will have to criticize the Budgie team, not the Ubuntu team, but the Budgie team on this one. Like, I don't know if this is I don't know if all the applets, if they develop all the applets, or if they sign them or whatever. But let's go through the top panel here. You have the start menu here. You have a clock right in the middle, as you could tell here. You have the Budgie menu, which is here, a spacer here. So we have a clock here. App indicator tray, which is over here. System tray. Which it looks like we have caffeine. Okay, so it looks like a lot of this stuff is independent things. And you have notifications, which opens up the notification side of the Raven menu, which we'll get into what that is right now. And then when you hit this corner application, it takes you into the applet side of the Raven menu. And as you can tell, there's a lot here. There's the calendar, which this is kind of Budgie's main claim to fame. This is kind of like their it's their original piece of the pie that they're adding to the table. You can only reinvent the wheel so many times. It's been done before. The start menu's been done before. The panel, the system trays has all been done before. At this point, we're just rearranging them across the board. And that's my opinion. But this is a pretty original piece. We've never seen this before, except maybe in the Windows 10 or whatever. I remember something like this in Mac OS the last time I ran it. That was eons ago. Don't take my word for that. I don't know if they have it anymore. Looks like down here we have the apps that are running that have you can control the volume of them. I'm not going to do that now because I don't want to end up messing up my audio. Devices, it looks like you can switch between built-in speakers and like whatever you have for media outlets. In this case, I have it set to the headphones, which I'm using right now. Or you can click the notifications. You can get between the two here too. So really, if you click this, it'll take you to notifications. You can click that to get the applets and yada yada. Looks like here we have a places menu, which gives you a shortcut to your home folder and folders within your home folder. Your core folders, documents, downloads, music, that kind of thing. Here it looks like we have a note, like a note-taking app. I take naps in class. Whoops, I meant to say notes. Yeah, I take notes. Okay, so, but there's one thing here that's unaccounted for, and that's this right here. Showtime. What is Showtime? Because if you go up here, you see Budgie menu up here. See a spacer here. That makes sense. And all of a sudden there's this, the clock, but here's the clock. So somewhere in between this, the spacer, and this clock, there should be something called Showtime. But I'm not seeing that here. I'm not seeing it here. Everything here is accounted for down here. This is this. the clock that's on the desktop right here. And this, I think, is kind of confusing. I did have to search for this online. I did have to Google this to figure out what this was. And I have to say this is kind of confusing because I would have never, in all my time using this, if I didn't run an internet search, if I didn't search for this thing specifically, I would have never known what that clock is. I would have never known how to edit it. I would have never figured this out. Because I'm not going to look for something on the desktop in a menu called top panel. This is not in the top panel. So it's kind of misleading. I think this is more of a desklet, and I think that there should be a separate category for this kind of thing if we're going to be using these kinds of things. That being said, it is pretty neat. That's like my only criticism, aesthetically wise, is that's kind of confusing. I would have never thought to look here for that, but it is kind of neat. You come in here and through trial and error, I figured it out. I came over here and just hit this, and the second that changed, I knew. I'm like, okay, this is it. This is it. Don't know how it's there or why it's there. It looks like you can move it around if you hit drag, and to hit super. So your mod key, which super is your Windows key in most systems. And it looks like you can move it around. It's pretty neat. What I would like to see is a weather. Something like this, but for like the weather. Or up here, preferably. It's more convenient. I think a weather app is more convenient in the system tray. But yeah, now we'll check out the software center. Looks like your standard GNOME software center. Sign into Snapstore, sign into Ubuntu. I don't have either of those accounts, by the way, because I use Arch. Yeah, we're going to search for an application here, just to see if it installs properly. You don't have Stellarium? It's a pretty common Linux app. You would think you'd have it. Let's take a... Let's see if we can browse by education and science. Try to browse it by category if we can. Well, it looks like this needs some work. Unless it's just running really slow because I have OBS running. Let's have a look at HTOP. It's not taking up that much CPU. I don't see any reason at all why it should be doing this. Let's maybe try a different app then. Blank again. Oh, found two. Not sure what that is. Oh, you know what? An easy one would be DOSBox. We'll just install that one. Is there an issue with my internet? I have been having issues with that. I will say that I did forget to mention sometimes, like the first time I logged into it after the installation, it had problems with the network manager. It wouldn't search for networks. It wouldn't connect to the network that I had installed to the installer, which most installers, I've noticed that if I connect it to my home network before the installation, it saves that somehow and automatically connects to it after the installation. Some installers do that. This one I assumed would. Most Ubuntu installers did do that for me in the past. I just assumed that was because it was a beta. I guess maybe it is. Well, my go-to ping see temporary failure in name. Okay, so we are having network connectivity issues. So that's probably what's going wrong with the Software Center here. So good thing I wasn't streaming this. That would have been a pain in the butt. Developer snap crafters. Looks like this is a snap package. IPA. I'm still getting an IP address. Try ping the router. I could ping the router. Oh, must be an issue with the DNS. Oh, I got connectivity on my other system, so it's something going wrong with this system here. I'll try to figure it out after I'm done with the stream here. Again, I'll just chalk it up to the fact that it is a beta. We're gonna run into little quirks like this here and there. But anyway, on that note, I guess maybe I should wrap this up here. If you would like to, I will try to jump on to Big Daddy Linux later on tonight at 8 o'clock Central. 8 o'clock Eastern. Sorry. I will talk about my experience on this. And I'll let you know if I figure out some of the issues here. But these are my initial impressions. These are my initial thoughts. Like I said, this is not a review. You're seeing this as I see it. So, initial thoughts, initial impressions. In conclusion, beautiful desktop environment, beautiful theming. Very original. They really put their own spin on this on Budgie. As far as I could tell, it seems to be on its way to becoming stable. It's not quite there yet. Again, it is a beta, so I'm not gonna hold too much issue with it. So, with that, thanks for joining me again. Again, this is not a review. If you like my content, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment under the video here. And I will catch you on the next one. Thank you and have a great day.